Welcome to the National Security Alert, brought to you by the Citizens Commission on National Security. Now here's your host, Roger Aronoff.
Thank you, Don Smith. Welcome to another episode of the National Security Alert. The Citizens Commission on National Security is a watchdog organization where we are following all of the issues that affect America's national security. We evolved out of the Citizens Commission on Benghazi, and you can see all of our work at our website, ccnationalsecurity.org. And I'm going to get right into our first guest today. He has been a member of both the Citizens Commission on Benghazi and Citizens Commission on National Security since the beginning, 9 years now. He is Captain Larry Bailey. Captain Bailey was commissioned as a Navy officer and served on the USS Leary until he was assigned to the Underwater Demolition Team and SEAL Team 2. During Larry's 27 years as a Navy SEAL, he served in Vietnam, Dominican Republic, the Philippines, and Panama, among others.
Afghanistan, Iraq, Africa. U.S. Navy SEALs are protecting America's interests in every combat zone around the world. And in this elite brotherhood is a special class of warrior, sharpshooters, capable of incredible marksmanship under every conceivable condition. Men like American sniper Chris Kyle, lone survivor Marcus Luttrell, and the unsung heroes who freed Captain Richard Phillips on the high seas.
Thank you very much.
I don't think anybody would argue that the SEAL snipers are some of the top snipers in the world. I mean, they've got the track record to prove it, and I'm not bragging when I say that.
For his last 3 years in the Navy SEALs, Captain Bailey was the commander of the Naval Special Warfare Center, which is the school where every Navy SEAL is trained. And Captain Bailey was basically the headmaster of that school. And I'm proud to introduce him as a friend and an associate. Captain Bailey, welcome.
Thank you, Roger. Pleased to be here.
Great to have you. So, Navy SEALs are fascinating to me and to a lot of people. And one of my friends once described it as they're like the Green Berets, but they can do everything they do, except they can also do it in the water, underwater, and it's really a very elite group of people. And I want to know, I think people are very interested, what was it about your upbringing and your character that led you into becoming a SEAL?
Well, nothing about my upbringing or character led to me becoming a SEAL, except the unfortunate experience I had on the USS Leary. And I dare not go into any great detail, but I had a commanding officer who was just as glad for me to leave the ship as I was to go away. and I went into UDT replacement training at Little Creek, and the rest is history.
Okay, so you went from there to UDT, which is the underwater demolition team, and did that automatically put you in the SEAL, or did you have to then go through additional training
Now
on top of that?
at that time, you had to be a year as a member of an underwater demolition team. In my case, it was UDT 22, and then you had to volunteer for SEAL training, and they had to want you. So I applied for it, and the commanding officer over there thought I would be good, and so December of '64, I walked across the street from UDT 22 to SEAL Team 2.
Okay, well, I'd love to hear, and I know our audience would, a couple of stories. So you were in Vietnam. Give us, what's your memory of an example of action that your group took when you were in Vietnam?
Well, one thing about Vietnam was you were never cold, and we had a variety of minor missions. I'd say we never had a real major mission wherein we charged a Viet Cong village, but we would sneak into a Viet Cong village and take a couple of shots and take a couple of people out. But the mission that was most memorable in my mind was a Vietnamese army soldier who had been captured by the Viet Cong. Came to us with an American sponsor saying that there were 2 American POWs in the compound from which he had escaped, and the Americans asked would we like to go in and do it, because they had asked the Marines and Special Forces if they wanted to try to rescue the Americans, and before my boss could say no, because he wasn't there, I said yes, we'd like to do that. And for the next 24 hours, we had every asset in Vietnam at our disposal, including a battalion of Vietnamese Rangers, a B-47 Australian bomber, dive bomber, and American helicopters. And it was a pretty complicated operation. We knew exactly where the compound was, where these boys were being held. And but the question was, how do we get there? We weren't going to be infiltrating down a road or up a canal, but it was going to be pretty hard to figure it out. But what we did do was we took a helicopter in to about 5 kilometers from where the compound was known to be, and we had another 2 or 3 helicopters flying around the area, and we would give them a signal to make a certain sound or a certain password, and they would shine a light on a known position where we would know from what angle we were from where they were. And every time we would get that signal, we would draw a line on the map we had, and when we had 2 or 3 lines where they crossed together, then we would know that that's where we were in the middle of the rice paddy. And once we knew where we were, we knew how to get to the compound. And after a couple of hours of going through the marshes and the swamps, we came up on this compound at early light, just before light. And as it turned out later, the VC had already moved these 2 Americans as soon as the Vietnamese had escaped. So we didn't have any chance of getting them, but they still had the VC cadre at that compound, and so we slipped up on them without them knowing we were there, and killed a couple of them, and captured a couple of weapons, and we didn't have anybody hurt. But we didn't get the POWs out, which was regrettable. But we put the fear of Buddha into the Viet Cong.
Mm-hmm. And what about any operations you did as part of your underwater demolition team? Did you?
we did really, we did some training. The first platoon I had was in UDT 22, and we made a Caribbean cruise off in Vieques Island and several other places in the Caribbean. But we didn't do any real operations. We did a lot of training, and
Okay.
I separated the shoulder in a water entrance, but no big deal there. But
Okay. And what about, tell me about the Dominican Republic, because you were part of an operation there, a whole U.S.
yeah,
team that went in there.
that was almost the first operation that SEAL Team 2 ever had. Uh, we uh, we went down with the Army Special Forces in a C-130, and we camped at the Santo Domingo Airport on top of a giant ant hill. And the next couple of days, we moved into Trujillo. He was the dictator. We moved into his beach cottage alongside the Rio Ozama. Really an exquisite place. By that time, the communist rebels had taken over had taken over Trujillo's palace and what have you, and had kicked him out of the country. And so we stayed down alongside the Rio Ozama while somebody was trying to figure out what we should do and what special forces should do. And there was a three-star admiral down there by the name of John McCain, who later got his fourth star. And he was the father of a teenager at that time named John McCain, later Senator McCain. Not one of my favorite people, by the way. And so they figured out that they were going to let the demolitions experts in the Special Forces platoon or A team go down this long street to a radio station which was broadcasting communist propaganda and blow it up, which seemed kind of silly, but we were ready to support them. Our job as SEALs was to go across the Rio Ozama, probably all 300 or 400 yards wide at that stage, and secure a perimeter, and then send a rubber boat back to pick up these 8 or 10 special forces guys with their demo packs, and we would have a defensive perimeter through which they would pass, go down the street, go find we knew where the radio station was. They would go down there and blow it up, and it didn't make much sense because there were about 10 destroyers out there with 5-inch guns aboard. They could have dropped one 5-inch shell, maybe a spotter round, and they would have taken out that radio station with one spotter round and one round in the middle. But my commanding platoon commander, a guy named Jack Nation, spoke better sense to the Special Forces colonel and convinced them it would not be a hard thing for the ships to do, and there they were going to hazard 20 SEALs and Special Forces guys for little or no reason, because we would have gotten shot up pretty badly because we were in the middle of a bad place.
Okay.
So we didn't do it.
So, pardon me?
We didn't do it.
Oh, you didn't do it. Okay. And your other operations like Panama, Scotland, Bolivia.
Well, I was in Panama. I was in Panama for 2 years. I was an admin puke there, as we say, at U.S. Southern Command on Quarry Heights, and we didn't do very much at all except write plans, which is why I was there. I wrote the Navy plans operations for what the SEALs would be doing, and as a matter of fact, in 1980, I guess it was. One of the plans that I worked on, the invasion of Panama, this was several years after I had left Panama. They activated that plan, and the 82nd Airborne and some Special Forces guys jumped into it and took out the Guardia Nacional and rescued a couple of Americans. And we had so it was nice to know that I had 2 years later, that some of my work was activated. So that was what I did in Panama. From Panama, I went to Bolivia for 2 years, La Paz, Bolivia. I was the Navy advisor to the Bolivian Navy, and we didn't do anything but help the Bolivians get schooling and get supplies, advise them on what they needed, and we helped them get a couple of boats. We built a barge on Lake Titicaca for them to use as a hospital, floating hospital, and we built a barge down on the Trinidad River. I think that's where it was. We did a lot of good. We helped them help themselves. We didn't do the work. I would bring advisors in. I brought in a first-class E6 petty officer to go down to the Trinidad River Basin to help the Bolivian Navy put together another floating clinic that would go up and down the river. And so we did some good. Never went back to Bolivia, but I'd like to go back to see what they've done now that I've gone, which was probably a lot better.
So how were you picked to head the Naval Special Warfare Center, and what did that mean to you at the time?
Well, I was commanding officer of the Special Warfare Unit in Scotland called NSWU-2 in Macrohannish, Scotland, which was an RAF base that was sort of leased out to us at no cost. They were glad to have us there because they had a lot of buildings that weren't used, and they gave them over to us. We had a barracks, and we had a chow hall, and everything was, and we had the second longest NATO runway in all of Europe, and that was very convenient to get us into operations in any of the Eastern countries, Eastern European countries. All it would have required was for a plane to land. We hopped on it, and they would take us to the places we needed to go. But what we really did, since we didn't go to war during that time, we trained with the special operations, naval special operations folks in the European countries, Norway, Denmark, the Brits, the Spanish, the French, and we just got to know them and what their capabilities were, and they got to know us. And we had really good relations with those guys, and they knew who we were. And I'm still in touch with a couple of the German Kampfspringer.
Okay, so let's talk about your work after that, or actually before we do, I mean, what are your memories? In other words, what kind of leader were you? Were you tough on these guys? Were you compassionate? You'd been through.
Oh, I was a wuss, Roger. Actually, what my job was to see to it that I got the best people I could, and then I just sat back in my office and watched them do the job. And truthfulness, most of the time, if you have that set up, you're going to succeed, and people will think that you did a really great job. A few people thought I did a great job, but I know better. I just got good people to do my job.
Well, I didn't want to spoil that for you, but I was going to tell the people what a sweetheart I know you are from having worked with you these last 9 years. So as tough a guy as you are, you also got that other side of you that is fun. You know, people don't know your knowledge of history and languages, and you're quite a brilliant man, I must say. I've been very impressed, all the little things that we've talked about through the years, little and big. But so let's talk about your work after you left the Navy, and a couple of examples. One is you were involved, and you were actually the organizer of something called the Gathering of Eagles. Tell me about that.
There was some group of left-wingers, mostly Democrats, of course, that decided they were going to deface the Vietnam Memorial in Washington, D.C. And with no money in the bank and only a month to go, we organized a group of people to come in there and defend the Vietnam Memorial. And we thought, the bad guys claimed they were going to have 10,000 people there. We had 30,000. They had about 500. And we even captured a couple of them and duct taped them to a flagpole somewhere. It was they did not try anything like that again. And we were called Gathering of Eagles, and we had a similar event in 2007, I believe it was. These bad guys were going to keep our U.S. World War II memorial. They were going to keep it from being opened, and we put some of the same guys together, and one of the guys that was there was Dinesh D'Souza, and he interviewed a couple of us, and the bad guys knew that they were facing the same people for the most part that they had faced several years earlier, and they didn't cause any problem at all.
Okay, another one, and how you sort of became part of our Citizens Commission on Benghazi was you were part of one of the founding members of the SOS, Special Operations Speaks. Tell me how you got into that and what that was all about.
Well, I got into that because of the three founders of Special Operations Speaks. I was the best looking, and so that's actually Dick Brower and Ken Benway and I. Dick was Air Force Special Operations. Ken was the Special Forces Lieutenant Colonel retired, and I was the Navy representative. And it just made sense. I had run across Roger Aronoff, and he knew who we were, and I had known some of the other services representatives there. We were the lowest in rank. Had a 4-star admiral, a couple of generals, and we just kind of minded our own manners and said, yes, sir, no, sir, can I get your coffee? But we lent our prestige, such as it was, to the Citizens Committee on Benghazi. And one of the reasons that we got on was because those 2 SEALs that were killed were, I knew them. And so we were a natural fit for the Citizens Committee. And we had several meetings up in Washington and several, I don't know, how should we say, appearances talking about
Right.
the Benghazi people.
Right. Yeah, you're talking about the SEALs that were killed at the CIA annex at near the Special Mission Compound in Benghazi. You know, we're coming up on the 10th anniversary of that, right?
That's correct. That's correct.
Yeah, yeah. So some of the issues that are out there, one that I know you've been involved with is what they call the Stolen Valor. There was, of course, a book by Burkhead about that, and you know I've called you when certain people have made certain claims about their background in the military or in the SEALs, and you have been a great one to flag these people as phonies. I mean, the highest ranking example is Senator Dick Blumenthal was one who claimed to have been in Vietnam when he never went there. But what is your experience and what strikes you about these stolen valor cases?
Well, I had a lot of fun exposing these phonies, but anytime I got a chance to expose one, to include after they had died, I busted one after he had been buried, and exposed him to his wife, and her son called me later and said that he was really proud that we had done that because he had led his wife to believe that he had been a SEAL all of their marriage, and she thought that there was something kind of screwy about it, and she was glad to know that her intuitions were right. And but the most extraordinary case I've got, and the case is ongoing. I heard about a guy, and Norman Vincent Peale had a little magazine about that big called Guideposts. You might remember that. But there was a guy who claimed he was a pastor, and he was the chaplain at Attica State Prison in upstate New York. And he claimed that he was a SEAL. He had been shot down in a plane in the jungle between the ocean and the beach and Da Nang airfield, which was a lie because I had been to Da Nang, and there was no jungle between the beach and the airfield. and I knew something was wrong there, so I did some checking. This guy said he had a Navy Cross. He had rescued some air crew in the plane that had been shot down, and so I contacted the chaplain at Attica State Prison, a really nice old African American Baptist preacher, and I said I had a curious story that a guy named Robin, I forget his last name. Robin had claimed to be a Navy SEAL, had a Navy Cross, and he had done all sorts of hairy things in Vietnam and elsewhere, and Robin Wright was his name. And could he tell me anything about the Reverend Robin Wright? He said, well, Mr. Bailey said, I have to tell you that Mr. Wright is not, he was a chaplain's assistant. He wasn't a real chaplain, but we had some words and I asked him to leave and he went away and didn't come back. Well, he went away, and the reason he didn't come back was he was in the mountains of Georgia. And he started up a little church, or took over an existing church, and it turned out he ran off with the church organist, and now he and his wife and he went down to Panama City, Florida. I didn't know anything about Georgia, but I got a call from a guy, a SEAL in Panama City, asking about this guy, the Reverend Robin Wright, and claims to be a SEAL, had started a church down there and had a wife and 3 or 4 kids. And did I know anything about him? I said, yeah, I know him and know him well. And he supposedly left his wife or sent her back to New York and ran off with and brought down the church organist with him to Panama City. And so we exposed him, and he left that church. I think the church actually kept alive somehow, and he went to out west somewhere to Arizona, New Mexico. He was always starting new churches, and we were on his heels. We 2 or 3 of us, and he moved out to Las Vegas, and he started a little church in a metal building in Las Vegas, and I have a SEAL friend out in Las Vegas, and his wife was very helpful to me. She went to the church where he taught, where he spoke, and went to a church service, and this guy is 6 feet 7 inches tall. Robin Wright is. He likes cars. The pastor had his own parking space for his Mercedes. And so we contacted the deacons in the church, the elders, told them about the Reverend Robin Wright, and they kept the church going. And I don't know what Robin Wright did. He's still there, and would like to get a hold of him in a crowd and let them say what they'd like to say. He was an absolute fraud. His wife did divorce him. He never gave any alimony or child support to his wife. She's a nice lady. I've spoken to her on several occasions. I've talked to his daughter, who lives in Iceland, and told her everything that I've just told you. And we have it in the back of our minds to have some people go out to Vegas, some of whom are already there, and pick him up after the church service is over, and let him make his excuses. So it sounds good. Might turn out too.
So did that get any media coverage, that story?
I wrote a feature story for Soldier Fortune magazine.
Okay.
And at the time I wrote it, he was just getting to Las Vegas. That was several years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, 5, and have I've lain dormant for the last few years, but we'll get them. And I've personally been involved in probably 200 or 300. There's a guy named Don Shipley. He's a SEAL, retired senior chief, and he has put together several videos. And I don't know what he's done lately. He moved from Virginia to Maryland, I believe, and he still exposes some. Sometimes somebody will give him a few dollars. He even went down and exposed a huge guy, and great big tall guy, kind of confronted him right on Bourbon Street in New Orleans, and Shipley's a decent sized guy, but he was not as big as this guy. And I believe this guy probably could have put him down, but Shipley put him down. He backed him right down. He said he would never claim to be a SEAL again. And he still exposes a few. I think he's got another telephone number now, and he's got a website, I believe, called stolenvalor.com. And that's how people get a hold of him. But I'll still run across the occasional SEAL. I'm not sure about Aronoff either. He kind of excites my attention every now and then.
Never was that kind of SEAL. Anyway, what about some of the other? I mean, we hear about SEAL Team 6. We hear about capturing bin Laden. We hear about Extortion 17. Are there any of the stories that have been in the media in the last few years about SEALs that have struck you as we're not quite getting the full truth about them?
Well, yeah, I don't think that all the truth about Extortion 17 has ever come out. The guy who commanded that operation was a SEAL in charge of the SEALs in Afghanistan, and he was killed in the operation. Why don't you
remind our audience about what that was about?
Yeah, it was about there were 5 SEALs, I believe, that were trapped, and 4 of them got killed, I believe. And they knew they were trapped in the mountains of Afghanistan, and these SEALs wanted to go in and rescue their buddies. They knew them. They were the same team or same operation. And they got a helicopter, a big helicopter, and they had not practiced for, they haven't rehearsed for it or anything, and they took the hang on, I'll get this thing off. And so they just got underway, and they flew too low to the mountaintops, and the Taliban with an RPG-7, a Russian rocket, shot the helicopter down, killed everybody on the helicopter, and so that was a sad story. Nobody knows exactly what happened because everybody who was involved in it died, and anybody who knew anything about it did not want to tell him, did not want to say anything. There are people who know what happened, but I'm not one of them. The other event, and I think it was really an outstanding operation. There was I believe a British female and a British male were on their way to assist in some medical mission, and they got stopped on a highway in Iraq or Afghanistan, I forget which, but it was in the desert, and the bad guys stopped them, abducted them, took them to a place in a wadi, W-A-D-I, in the desert, and we knew where they were. We had I don't know if they had satellites or airplanes, helicopters, but they found out which oasis they were held in, and in a 2-day period, they mounted an operation at night. And the SEALs, 8 or 10 SEALs, jumped out of the helicopter at 10,000 feet or so, and landed in the desert 5 or 6 miles from the bad guys and from the 2 hostages, and they crept up on them, and one of the male hostage heard a noise, the SEALs, and then the SEALs were blown, their cover was blown, and one of them told the 2 hostages to keep quiet, they're going to be rescued. And of course everything blew up at that time, and at the end of it all, the man was killed, the woman was rescued uninjured, and all of the bad guys were killed, and none of the SEALs were injured. But these guys, they parachuted. I think it was a free fall, just like skydiving, from 10,000 feet in the middle of the night in a dark desert. That was a hairy, hairy move. And then, of course, we all know that it was SEALs that killed bin Laden at his hideaway in Pakistan, and that was a phenomenal mission. We don't know exactly what happened, but we do know that SEALs did kill Osama bin Laden and killed one of his sons, and one of his bodyguards. That they turned out to be a real good mission, as we all know.
So one of the issues that is important to us at the Citizens Commission on National Security, the CCNS, has been what's happened to the military. As you pointed out, you and we have a lot of retired colonels, 3 retired generals. Of course, we lost our other Navy person, Admiral Ace Lyons, but what is happening to the military today is its mission should be to be ready to win wars, to keep the freedom of navigation around the world open, to basically be there to flex our muscle and use it when necessary against the bad guys. But a lot of people have seen the mission moving toward becoming critical race theory and about, a lot of politics involved. There seems to be
woke. I wish I had
woke.
the emails that a former POW in Laos, and Mark Smith, got the Distinguished Service Cross for the things he did. Phenomenal guy, very smart guy, lives in Thailand, and he is so upset, as am I, with what is becoming of the military, the woke, the Chief of Staff of the Army, the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs. There may be 1 or 2 hard-hearted men amongst them, but I believe that most of them are politicians with uniforms. And if I'm saying the wrong thing, if I'm mistaken about any of you 4-star gentlemen, I beg your pardon. But I can say that the Secretary of Defense is as woke as any woke person I've ever heard about. General Austin he's definitely a politician. He's done what the politicians have told him to say. He is a friend of Obama's. I'm not going to say anything bad about Obama because anything I said would be bad. But the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and those guys, they're not doing our military any good. I saw just an article today that we're having our first transgender SEAL, and the female is in a Navy female uniform with the SEAL insignia. That just makes me want to, pardon me, puke. And and I have actually met a transgender Navy SEAL who got out of the Navy and then outed himself. He was a decent guy, but he was a lesbian. So that proves that a male can be a lesbian. He was transgender, and he was highly thought of by his contemporaries, but not after he changed his gender and wanted to be the first female SEAL. But there is now a female Navy SEAL in the U.S. Navy, and I think that General Austin is going to see to it that, and the Chief of Naval Operations is going to see to it that she goes to Coronado or Little Creek and is affiliated with the SEAL team. That is so sad. It is so sad.
Well, how do you feel that is affecting our military readiness to do the missions, the kind of missions that we've done over the last century and more? What is your concern about that as far as our national security based on our military readiness today?
Well, I'll tell you this, there's nobody in the SEAL teams or any of the special operations units who thinks that it's not destroying the morale of the military. The military is only as good as it thinks it is, and if it thinks that they're going to have to take care of the females in their midst, they're not going to be very good at all. And I can guarantee you, out of the several thousand special operations people, Air Force Special Operations Wing, the Marine Special Operations Battalion, the Raiders, the SEAL Special Forces, there's not one single male special operator who thinks it's a good idea. And I don't like the idea that we're going to lose 40,000 National Guardsmen because they, for religious reasons, are refusing to get the COVID-19 vaccination. And I've got my own feelings about that. But I don't think that anybody should be forced by the government to be vaccinated for COVID-19 or anything else.
Well, the last big military operation was how we pulled out of Afghanistan and Bagram. I mean, and then you had I believe it was Marine colonel who criticized that nobody was taking responsibility for how that played out, and the lies that we were told about they were going to get every American out. And so what were your feelings as you watched us depart Afghanistan?
There was a Marine colonel who expressed his opinion, but we had a president of the United States say the same thing. And I just makes me get sick to my stomach to think about how we lost all those people, the 13 Marines that were outside the gate, and they were out there because of the president of the United States. And we don't know how many of the Afghans that had supported us, how many of them fell to their deaths from the C5 wheel wells. It was almost a massacre, and the Taliban just started killing anybody that they felt like had helped us. And then $85 billion worth of weapons and transport, et cetera, et cetera. It was a real horror show, and the mainstream media doesn't even want to address it. And that brings to mind the utility of organizations like CCNS. We make it our mission to make the American people understand that the media, the press, the TV, the mainstream media, they're not telling the story at all, much less how it is. They'll address it only so far as they are absolutely forced to, like the Russiagate scandal 2 years ago. The mainstream media has yet to come really clean, because they knew it during the time of the election. They knew that the Russians weren't doing anything to help the Democratic candidate, and that they were hurting the Republican candidate. But now some of the individual writers are beginning to come clean, saying that, yeah, they knew that this was a scam being perpetrated on the American electorate. We don't want, in CCNS, we don't want to say too much of what we really, really believe, because if we do, we'll have the Department of Justice coming down on our necks.
Might have the FBI at your door at 6 a.m. So I think we'll start to wrap it up there. Larry, is there any other thoughts you want to give, final thoughts? This has been fantastic to get to know you, your views, and let the people learn more about you and your incredible service to this country and to the CCNS and the Citizens Commission on Benghazi. You've been a great friend and patriot, and so appreciated by all of us. And any final thoughts on it?
Well, my final thought is not about us, but is the appreciation that all of us in CCNS have for you, Roger. You've kept us alive when most of us would have given it up. But Roger, you left Maryland and went to Texas, where you should have been anyway, and you're keeping us all alive. Thank you for doing it.
Well, thank you. And so we're going to sign off. Larry, thank you very much. And once again, please visit our website, ccnationalsecurity.org. look at all of our members. You can read Larry's bio, the full-length one, and the rest of ours, and see articles and interviews that we keep posting. And we've got other big things in the works. We've done all of our work on Benghazi, the press conferences, everything. You see the Benghazi tab, hit that and check that out. We really have the definitive narrative about what happened there, holding people responsible and all that. So once again, this has been the National Security Alert with our dear friend Larry Bailey, and signing off. Thank you, and we'll be back with you for another show next week.
Thank you, Roger. Enjoyed it.